Hi everyone, this video is going to discuss incorporating outside sources into your writing, and there are really three ways we do this. Again, there are other videos and links to articles in the course that will help you understand how this works as well, but this is just some additional information. And it's been my experience that the more often students can hear this information, the better off they'll be when they start to incorporate outside sources into their writing. So the first way that we incorporate outside sources is by directly quoting the source. And that's when we take text from an outside source verbatim, which means word for word, and we incorporate it into our writing, and we place quotation marks around it so the reader knows it's an exact copy of what the original source's author wrote. Two things to remember when you're quoting directly. The direct quote, that's word for word, verbatim, has to be in quotation marks. Okay, you've got to put it in quotation marks. Sorry, there are three things to remember. Quotation marks is the first thing. Second thing, you have to include an introductory phrase when you incorporate a direct quote. Okay, you don't want to have a quote as a sentence by itself. That's called a floating quotation. So you want to include an introductory phrase into your quote. And you also need a parenthetical citation after the quote. So those three things. If you're taking information from another source, word for word, quotation marks, introductory phrase, parenthetical citation, the three things that you need to remember. Some introductory phrases to include or to consider as you're incorporating direct quotes into your work. X in these examples mean the author, whoever wrote the original source, the source that you're citing. You could say that the author writes that quotation, citation, period. It is assumed that X claims that the article reminds readers that, as the author notes, these are all introductory phrases here. This is an introductory phrase, this, and this. And of course, we have our direct quote in quotation marks here. We have a citation at the end. So direct quote, quotation marks, citation, introductory phrase. Always remember when you're working with direct quotes, the acronym ICE. Introduce, cite, explain. And I would also add that you don't want to start a paragraph with a direct quote, and you don't want to end a paragraph with a direct quote. You also want to avoid using quotes in an introductory and concluding paragraph because, those first, when your reader is first encountering your paper, you want the first thing that they know and the first thing that they read to be your thoughts, and you want the last thing that they read to be yours. So I would only use direct quotes in the body of your paper. Another way that we can incorporate outside information into our paper is by paraphrasing. And this usually is, when we're doing research, is the bulk of what we're doing instead of quoting directly, because direct quotes should only be 30% of your final paper. Paraphrasing is when you take a passage from an outside source and put it entirely into your own words. Entirely into your own words. Remember, we want to avoid patch writing, which is when we take a passage and we just change a few of the words. Paraphrasing is when you change it entirely into something that you would say. All right, rather than what the original source said. It's paraphrasing. We don't put paraphrases in quotation marks, but it does require citation. And that's so important to remember. Any information that you got from an outside source that you're incorporating into your own work requires citation, even if you paraphrase it. If you put it in your own words, that's awesome, but you got it someplace else, you've got to include a citation. And the last way that we incorporate outside sources into our writing is by summarizing, or including a summary. And a summary is when we put the main ideas of a really long passage into our own words. So we condense when we summarize. It's still important when you're summarizing that you include references to the outside source. Okay, it doesn't require quotation marks, but it does require citation. So if you're summarizing a really, really long article, you continually need to be reminding your reader that you got this someplace else. that it was another source. You want to start off by saying, in the article, then state the title of the article, by the author, this and this and this. And then in the next sentence, the author writes, and you're summarizing, you're putting it into your own words. And maybe in the next sentence, the article also states. You want to continually remind your reader that you are not taking credit for this work, that this is not original, that you got it someplace else and you're just condensing the material from the original source for your readers. You're summarizing for them. And really the main thing to take away here is you want to cite, 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 cite. All right? Everything that you didn't think of yourself or is not common knowledge requires a citation. You've got to let your reader know that you got it someplace else. If you have any questions as you work on incorporating outside sources into your writing, please be sure to let me know.